Applications for permits to carry concealed weapons in Kansas is setting a record, Attorney General Derek Schmidt said. More than 25,000 applications for permits were filed with the state between July 1, 2012 and June 30th of this year. That's more than double last year's total, along with the increasing numbers of Kansans seeking concealed weapons. Starting last week, the state expanded the number of places where concealed guns are now permitted. This includes all state and municipal buildings which do not have armed guards or metal detectors. So what accounts for the massive rise in concealed permit holders in just 1 year?
Well, I think you go back to the massacre in Connecticut and people concerned that in the aftermath of that, and we saw some push for federal gun restriction legislation as well as certain states, that people started to believe somehow, some way, the federal government was going to come in and infringe on their Second Amendment rights. So I better go get my gun, I better go get my permit now before the federal government comes in. And it's just as there were knee-jerk reactions to try to pass legislation to greater restrict gun ownership, this is a knee-jerk reaction by people running out in a state legislature to move in that direction.
Is it as simple as that, Jack?
No, it's actually half right. I mean, Sandy Hook is, I think, the origin of part of it, and that is right. And the fears were not illegitimate because there was the government would have pushed as far as they could get away with. But the second part of it is this: is people see that circumstance and they say, we don't want to be caught in a circumstance like this, unable to respond. And we see now, and I think another factor is the combination of video cameras everywhere and YouTube. So we used to read about incidents, now we see them. And we see people being beaten up, humiliated, do all these things every day. And on the internet, people don't want to be exposed to that, so they respond.
Now, while Kansas was getting the headlines this week on the doubling of this, what we've seen in Jackson County, they've been expanding also the hours that they are making available for people to actually sign up to be able to get their applications as well.
Well, there are rules about how fast you have to process those applications. You can't just leave the conceal and carry permit kind of hanging out there forever and someone waiting to be given that or not. But you know, the thing that's it'll be interesting is kind of more the long view of this and to see what sort of little blips these runs to get your gun, get your conceal and carry permit really play out long term. Because really gun ownership, people don't want to believe it because of all the conversation that we have currently, but gun ownership is down in the U.S. It's down. And what a lot of people think is that a lot of the people who have who are pushing these things, maybe buying more guns, applying for a permit, already own a gun. So is it more people who already own guns just buying more, or are we really getting a lot of new gun owners? And we simply don't know right now.
I think, Nick, one of the things you need to talk about with respect to this Kansas law is if people want to own guns and if they want to carry concealed guns, that's fine. But there's some irresponsible parts of this law. For example, there's no punishment anymore for taking a gun into a place where it is prohibited. You'll simply be asked to leave. So you're essentially breaking the law or breaking the rules, but there's no repercussion. Also, you're now allowing people to carry guns into places like potentially the State House, courtrooms, government buildings, and I think it's only a matter of time before someone goes into one of these buildings bent on retribution.
But isn't that only if they don't have metal detectors or if they don't have armed guards?
That's correct. Okay. But, so at what point in time do you get the point where someone lawfully carrying a gun goes in to seek retribution on a law enforcement officer, on a judge, on a prosecutor, a defense attorney, a lawmaker, a mayor? I mean, it's only a matter of time before that happens, and we look back and say, did we make a mistake in allowing these types of guns, these weapons to be carried into these buildings? I think it's going to be a huge mistake.
Jack?
Now, I don't know about the total number for gun ownership, but I do know I have several friends in the weapons, firearms industry. And if they had known 5 years ago how good Obama would have been for their business, they probably would have donated to him. It's been a bonanza for that industry. And because of people's, the fears are not unjustified by the moves. Every time there's a shooting, like at Sandy Hook or wherever, there's an instinctive response by the forces of government to restrict gun ownership.
But they never do, Jack. So there's this worry, but it never happens. And in fact, the ownership rules only become more loose. And we saw it in Kansas, we saw it in Missouri. So there may be this fear that the government's going to do something, and they inevitably do. They make it easier to own a gun, and they make it more places where you can go and carry a gun, whether concealed.
And the other thing that's true is that groups like the National Rifle Association and others exacerbate those fears whenever there's an incident like this, I mean, every time there's an incident, it does provoke more purchases, more concealed carry permits, which is why some critics suggest that, as Jack does, that the manufacturers are actually provoking this response so they can sell more weapons and make more money. I'm not sure I completely share that view, because I don't think concealed carry permits, frankly, have had an effect one way or another. That makes it much more of a political issue than it does a safety.
Okay,